right, so 2 picks from the front 7 in the SEC for you guys. I'm gonna go north to the Big Ten, and if you follow us on our social media at 3TechPod on Instagram and Twitter, you would have seen a couple of weeks ago, I made the proclamation that Penn State would win the Big Ten in the 2023 season for a couple of reasons. I think mainly I trust what Penn State is bringing back more so than what a team like Ohio State is. With Kyle McCord at quarterback, is he gonna be the guy? Their defense was not very good last year. It got exposed a couple of times. What does that look like in year 2? And then let's be honest, it's just a little bit more fun than picking Michigan to win 3 in a row. One of the big catalysts for that is third-year cornerback Kalen King. He's just played his sophomore season, 5'11", 188 from Detroit, Michigan. Kalen played opposite Joey Porter Jr., who I have as my cornerback 2 in this year's upcoming NFL draft. You've got him going anywhere from pick 10 to pick 25, but it's pretty widely considered that Joey Porter Jr. will be a first-round NFL draft selection. Folks are saying that Kalen King could be even better, and here's why. Kalen in his first 2 years, 51 tackles. He had 38 of those as solo tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery. He's also had 3 interceptions with 20 passes defended. So you look at this guy's stat line, and this is all given the fact that nobody's really throwing against Joey Porter Jr., right? Cornerback 2, you're going to be under the gun. You're going to be the guy that gets the targets coming your way. And Kalen responded with all kinds of class. In fact, he had a lower quarterback rating, or gave up a lower quarterback rating than even Joey Porter Jr. did when folks were throwing at him. Kalen getting the majority of the targets gave quarterbacks a 45.8 passer rating. So he's holding opposing quarterbacks to next to nothing. They're not being productive. This is a guy who has tremendous athleticism. You go back and you look at his tape, he's physical at the line of scrimmage. That's one of the things I said about Joey Porter. He will knock a receiver off of his route from the very get-go. Kalen's doing the exact same thing. Plus, I think, based off of watching film, Kalen's got better ball skills. Kalen's ability, while locked up with the receiver on one hand, to swivel his head around, get that head back towards the football, which negates pass interference penalties, and stick a paw up to knock that pass down is unbelievable. He's an incredible athlete. He's got good ball skills. His most spectacular interception was in the Rose Bowl. Sorry, Garrett, when he picked off Cam Rising, basically ran the route for the receiver, made a diving catch. He looked like the offensive player if you're, kind of watching that play with no context. So for me, Kalen now steps into cornerback 1 for the Nittany Lions. He's a guy who's got all the traits, and honestly, we're going to see Joey Porter go pretty high in this first year of his draft eligibility. Depending on what happens this year for Penn State, especially if they run the gauntlet, if they become the Big Ten championship and are knocking on the door of playoff selection, I think Kalen King's a future first-round draft pick as well.
Yeah, and you got to look at some of these corners. Number one, the versatility, kind of like what we were just talking about with guys on the defensive line. You want a guy who doesn't just cover in the defensive secondary. You want a guy who can go make a play on the edge, especially with how many screens teams will use, quick passes out like that, or just trying to get the ball to the edge with some of these quicker running backs. I'm thinking about a couple at Michigan right now. They're going to have to be really good on the edges against guys like Corum and Edwards. I'm really looking at this. I love this pick from you, Mick. I love this guy being able to be that big breakout. Number one, because like you were saying, he has proven that he can stop guys in coverage. But number two, now that Porter Jr. is moving on, he's going to be able to kind of put his guy on an island, right? He's going to be able to say, you know what? Go ahead, try to throw at me early in the game. And when you see that doesn't work, I'm going to shut down this side of the field. And I think that's the next step for a corner, not just being able to defend passes, not just being able to pick the ball off, but take away an entire portion of the field just because you're over there, right? And being able to go up against some of these big time receivers at Ohio State, some really talented ones at Michigan, and obviously there's plenty of talent across the Big Ten. Being able to go up against some of those and being able to hold your own, defend passes, and to get some really good quarterbacks as well. Being able to do that all last season, I think is going to be the scouting report going into this game. If you're an opposing offense playing Penn State, you're going to say, well, what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to throw at Kalen King too much.
Mhm.
We're going to let him kind of be over there. We might scheme some stuff up and see if we can spring some stuff early, but we're going to try to find our mismatches on the other side of the field. And so I think this is a great pick. I think that this is going to be really good. And I think that you're also right about the Penn State stuff, too. We talked about that a little bit, but I mean, look, Penn State, they're going to be really, really good next year. I think could be a real candidate for dark horse, not just for the conference, but for the playoff as well. I think that they could have a really special season next year. Obviously, some other things depending too, but one of those things that you don't have to wonder about is Kalen King.
Yeah, and I love what you guys are both saying that, he did this as the guy that was picked on last year. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to choose your poison, you're going to throw at Kalen King over Joey Porter Jr. last year, and teams paid for it. And Penn State as a whole had a really, really good pass defense. I know they're not going up against, run and gun, fun and gun offenses in the Big Ten all the time, but turning on the tape, they had a really, really solid pass defense. It's because they were able to rely on Kalen King so much.
Well, and guys, he only gave up one touchdown the entire season as well.
That's
So,
ridiculous.
yeah, putting guys on islands is cornerback too. It's such an unexpected trait, I think, for most college defenses, especially in a game that prioritizes offense. Right? It's so tough to play excellent defense and be consistent, and yet King was able to do that, lined up across from one of the best corners in the entire game. Very under the radar, very unsung hero for that Penn State team. Also, just to kind of back up my hunch that Penn State might do some big things this year, very favorable schedule, right? West Virginia, Delaware, Illinois, Iowa, Northwestern, UMass is the front half of their schedule. I don't see a loss
I don't see any
in
losses.
that first half. And then their toughest road games in conference, they go to Ohio State on October 21st. And then they finish the year in East Lansing at Michigan State, which we know late season games in East Lansing, whether Michigan State is good or not, like you better have your guard up, otherwise you're going to get upset. But they've got Michigan at home. I really like Penn State to go 11-1 this year, and then depending on what happens around them, be pushing for a conference title and a college football playoff berth as well. They're a team on the rise. If Drew Aller can be everything that folks expect him to be, you throw in a defense that's supposed to return a lot of production and be very good. I think the Nittany Lions are easily a team that is stock up heading into 2023.
All right, so
And they
Mitch,
probably have two of the best running backs in the conference as well. I know that the Michigan's got their duo and they're going to be amazing, but behind Michigan, it's probably Penn State, and there's not too many teams across the whole country that can boast a better pair of running backs.
so Garrett, we're writing Mitch Penn State darling in Sharpie, right? Like we're just
I think that's
Sharpieing that
probably
in.
true. And let's also bring him up a bunch whenever we're talking about Ohio State and Michigan about how Mitch is a homer with Penn State because I think that's how we treat Big Ten teams on this podcast.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
I've got no connection to Penn State other than playing a dynasty with them one year in NCAA 14. But yeah, the writing looks to be on the wall for me. So we'll see what they can do. Good coaching staff over there. Manny Diaz, just I know he gets run through the ringer for his woes as a head coach at Miami and that literal day that he was the head coach at Temple. But being the defensive coordinator at Penn State, he's elevated what they can do. And, they're already linebacker you, and now you're adding really key pieces in that secondary. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Gracious, how about